Hello everyone, welcome to Applications Manager's free training series. So today's topic is gaining app-centric visibility into your IT infrastructure. Most business organizations these days have complex infrastructures that consist of various components that may include SaaS, cloud services, along with other mission-critical applications that are hosted across multiple cloud, container, and on-premise technologies. Ensuring application availability depends on various factors, and one of the most important ones is to have complete visibility over the infrastructure and application performance in real time. Gaining app centric observability and visibility can help you to identify issues in application performance and help you to take necessary remediation measures. You can also enforce and ensure security, compliance, and reliability over various service level agreements. It can offer hassle free digital experiences for your users and enable faster deliveries as well. It will also help you scale up the operations across the infrastructure and platform by analyzing the application performances. So let me briefly explain the agenda for today. We will go over this training in four different parts. First, we'll try to find out how we can auto discover components and dependencies across your entire IT stack. Then, we will learn how we can measure key performance metrics across every layer of your infrastructure. Then we will understand how we can use Applications Manager to instantly detect anomalies with AI assisted smart alerts. Finally, we will understand how we can leverage machine learning enabled analytics to analyze performance trends. So, firstly, let's see how we can use Applications Manager to auto discover components and dependencies across your entire IT stack. So, the first step to gain app centric visibility into your IT infrastructure involves analyzing your infrastructure. So, this can help you understand what exists in the infrastructure, what needs to be improved, and what changes can be brought upon. See, these assessments can help answer some critical questions about your infrastructure and applications. So, what's inside your data center rack? Understanding the components of the infrastructure is the key to discovering new ways to improve application performance along with user experiences. How to handle the technical and operational dependencies within applications in the infrastructure. So, if for some reason the organization decides that all the on premise applications need to be migrated, or if they have to be moved to a microservices based infrastructure, how are we going to handle the dependencies? How will you overcome those challenges? So, how does everyone connect to your network? How is the security compliance enforced? What kind of security does your infrastructure have? Who all can connect to the network? And how is the security compliance practice enforced? Do you review and evaluate these applications periodically? These are some important questions that need to be asked when you're assessing your infrastructure. So, if you let's say you have joint servers in your infrastructure, and these servers help run various applications. So, if the joint server is shut down, do all the applications that depend on it get shut down as well? Will these work? So, how do you actually handle these challenges? So, when you're doing an infrastructure assessment, you should be able to get an answer to all of these questions. So, let's understand what are the various benefits that are associated with infrastructure assessments. Firstly, assessments can shed light on significant issues. Let's say some of your applications are still using end of life services. This might cause a problem because it can bring in breakages in your applications. Secondly, it can act as a demarcation point, which means infrastructure assessments can help you understand where you are and what you need to do to improve and plan for future infrastructure upgrades. Education for new executives. Assessments become valuable tools for new executives. They provide a documented view of the current environment and can help them navigate through this new maze, thereby aiding them to identify issues in the existing infrastructure. So let's say you recently experienced an outage or a serious downtime issue. Then an assessment is a great way to kick off the detective process. As in, a proper assessment should identify the reason for the outage and outline a plan to prevent it from happening again. So these are the benefits of infrastructure assessments. An important step in assessing your infrastructure involves discovering the applications and mapping their dependencies. So, with Applications Manager, you can discover your applications instantly. It's basically an agentless process, which means you can do it from wherever you are. So, basically, it helps you remotely sweep an entire IT infrastructure using a single click network discovery. And then you can understand how these apps and services in your infrastructure are connected and how they communicate with each other. Once they are discovered and mapped, you can basically troubleshoot operational issues and understand the problems down to the host and instance level. So here's a flowchart that represents this entire process. Applications Manager will first discover your resources, and then it will be configured and added as monitors in the tool, which will then collect data. And this data can be analyzed and made into reports, which will help you take informed decisions. So now let's see how Applications Manager helps you discover the components in your infrastructure. So this is the Applications Manager tool. So you will just have to log in using the host name and the password. So you can go to the Settings tab, and under Discovery and Data Collection, you click on the Add or Discover option. So we have three basic options here: Add, Bulk Import, Discovery. So let's go to the Discovery tab. So here, once you click on the Discovery tab, you'll see that there's an Add New option. So you click on the Add New option and you give the name for the discovery. Let's just say Server Discovery. Once you give the name, you have the credential list. So you can use existing credential lists or you can add a new credential. So if you want to add a new credential, you can click on this button. Here you choose the credential type. So, and then you specify the credential name. And if you want to force SSL, you can check out this box. And you then specify the username and password and click on save. So once you add a new credential, it will be added to the list, which means you can reuse this credential the next time you want to create a new discovery option. Then we go to type. We have three types of discovery. First one is range. So this is basically the IP address range. So you enter the from IP address to and to IP address. So all of the components that exist between this IP range and satisfy this particular credentials will basically be discovered. So let's just say you give so here, this is basically the network address, and from 1 to 34 will be the device address, which means all the components that exist between this IP address range will be discovered. Here we also have an option to include other ranges. So you can just click on the plus button and add other ranges as well. And then you have the subnet mask. As you can see, it's masked the first three components, which is the network address, and devices from 1 to 34 will be discovered. So here we have the port details. By default, there'll be default ports. All of it will be specified here. If you want to change it, you can go ahead and customize it as well. So then you have three different options: discover, discover and add, and cancel. So this is for basic IP address range. Then we have CIDR. So here you just provide the network address and then all the components in this network address will get discovered. We also have the VMware option. So here this basically allows you to discover the VMware hosts from the vCenter infrastructure. All you'll need to do is specify the host name of the vCenter or the IP address and the port details along with username and password. You can also specify the TLS version and the subnet mask. If you want to create a virtual infrastructure view, you can check this box as well. So this is about the discovery option in Applications Manager. So then we have another option. So this is called the bulk import option. Here we first choose the monitor type. So once you choose the monitor type, you will have to upload a file. This file is basically a CSV file. So this file should have all the configuration details of the components that need to be discovered. So once you upload the file and once it has all the configuration information, all the components will be discovered. And then we have an add option. This is basically a manual option where you add monitors manually. So you can select the type of monitor you want to add. And when you click on each of those, you will have details. Here you will need to fill out these details and then you can add this monitor. So this is how Applications Manager helps discover components in your infrastructure. So now, once all of these components have been discovered, Applications Manager also maps them. So it creates what is called a dependency map. So what is a dependency map? It basically gives you an idea of how all of these components are connected in your infrastructure. What are the benefits of application dependency? So it basically gives you a business view of all the discovered applications, which means you can see a visual map like representation of all the components and the relationships with each other. Then you get server to server mapping based on connected applications. Here, a tree view that visually represents all the applications connected are represented in the form of a flowchart. We also have the live status of operational devices. Like you can see here, we have the status represented here. So at a single glance, you will be able to see which component of your infrastructure has a problem. We also identify down applications faster. Like I said, since the status is available, you can easily check what the problem is. We also have instant root cause diagnosis for quicker troubleshooting. So when you hover on each of these components, you have further details about why that particular component has a problem and what is the root cause for the same. So now let's see how a dependency map looks. So here, and this is a demo site, so you can go and see the demo of our product. You can explore all the options by yourself. It's accessible by anyone from anywhere. It's demo.appmanager.com. So when you go to the home tab and you click on the business view, here you can see the dependency map. So you can see all the components that have been discovered and how they've been mapped. This is, and each of these components, when you hover on it, you have other details as well as to what the problem is or what the root cause of why it is problematic. So this is dependency map in Applications Manager. So apart from this general discovery, we also have this option of discovering Tomcat servers through Prometheus. As you all know, Prometheus is like an integration, a open source application that also monitors certain applications. So if you have Prometheus environment and you want to export all of them, so you can use this integration. So all multiple Tomcat servers from different subnets can be discovered. So IP address of the host servers will not be required. And basically it saves a lot of time that's spent while discovery. So you can do this after you add Prometheus as an integration. So let me show you how you can do that. So you go to the settings tab and under product settings, you click on add-on settings. Here you can see Prometheus. We also offer other third-party integrations as well. So now when you click on the plus button, you'll have the option to add Prometheus as an integration. So you specify a display name and then you specify the polling interval. And then We offer two different types of data collection. One is exposed Prometheus API and one is curl through SSH. So you will have to select exposed API if the Prometheus server or pod has been exposed over a network. You can choose SSH if the Prometheus server is accessible only on a deployed server. Then you'll have to specify the server details. So you'll need to specify the host name, and then you need to specify the port name and the endpoint URL. And you can choose the protocol if it's HTTP or HTTPS with SSL. And if it requires any authentication, you can check this box and specify the username and password. When you scroll down, here you have the type of monitors that you want to basically discover from Prometheus. Right now, Applications Manager only supports Tomcat server discovery through Prometheus, but we have other types of monitors in pipeline, so we will bring in all of those soon. So we have different discovery options as well. So here you can choose to pause the discovery, or you can choose discover and monitor, which means you will discover all the Tomcat servers and then choose to monitor them as well. Discover but do not monitor. So all of these will be discovered, but it will not be monitored. Or you can also choose to discover specific instances and action on monitor if data is not available. So what do you want Applications Manager to do if data is not available for any of the servers? So you can either mark the monitor is down, or you can unmanage the monitor, which means data will not be collected, and then you can choose to delete the monitor as well. So after you fill in all these details and you add save, the integration will be saved, and Prometheus will, all the Tomcat servers in this Prometheus server will be discovered in Applications Manager. So this is how APM lets you discover Tomcat servers through the Prometheus integration. Let's move on to the next topic. Measure key performance metrics across every layer of your infrastructure. Now that we've learned how we can discover all the components in your infrastructure, we will now focus on the next important aspect: measuring key performance metrics that can allow your IT or DevOps team to identify and resolve issues, can help you avoid negative impact on business outcomes. It can also prevent sloppy user experiences. Issues can basically occur at all levels and layers. At the application level, if there's app slowness, this might probably be due to some unhandled exceptions. At the OS level, it is crucial to ensure that proper provisioning of server and virtual resources are there to avoid over or underutilization, because this might lead to faults or memory leaks or various other issues that might impact performance of applications. Network. So it's very important that you have a properly configured network, because otherwise you might have various errors. And overpressure and utilization can then again cause a strain on your performance, and it can even lead to sudden downtimes, which might mean more hours of recovering from disasters, or IT admins again have to pour in manual hours to diagnose what the issue is. Hardware is the most basic issue, which can basically cause severe damage. This can cause application unavailability. So, repair work might involve thousands of dollars in revenue, not to mention the strain that is there on administrators. To ensure hassle free operations of your mission critical services, it's very important to monitor key metrics of all your infrastructure components. To give you an idea, when we say servers, KPIs like CPU, memory utilization, response times are very, very important. These basically help you analyze the load that your server is handling, and even helps nip application bottlenecks at the bud. So when we say databases, we must be able to track the requests, latency, and the list of slow running queries to basically pinpoint slowness. You should be able to track logs, table spaces as well. With respect to cloud components, you must be aware of the health and availability of all your multi cloud environment resources, and you should be able to track KPIs of each of them to demystify your cloud monitoring challenges. So, to give you an idea of how Applications Manager tracks these key metrics and how all of this data is represented in an effective, easy to understand dashboard modes, let me show you a monitor in Applications Manager. So Applications Manager supports various types of technologies. So we support application servers, services, database servers, web server or services, almost 150 plus technologies. For each of this, we collect various critical performance indicators. So we have ERP systems as well, middleware, cloud apps, and we even have custom monitors, and we have virtualization technologies as well. So let's take a cloud app. So this is an Amazon cloud. So we have the overview tab. So here at a single glance, you can see how your cloud environment is performing. So in your Amazon environment. So the total number of EC2 instances that are running, the number of load balances that are there. You can even take a look at the database resources, application integration, and containers, etc. So, and then you have details about each of the services. So when you say Amazon Compute, there are so many instances, Lambda instances, EC2 instances. When you click on each of this, you have proper information about critical application performance indicators. So we have CPU utilization, and then you can see network traffic, disk IO, and you have other OS level metrics. So you can see the available memory, and you can see the disk utilization here. So all of this is represented in both the table form and as well as the graphical format. So for you to analyze and understand how well your components are performing. So you can see that there are details about your attached volumes, and you also have configuration details of all of these. So you can even check the availability and health and the uptime and when the last downtime was. So it gives you an idea of everything that you need to know about your components. So this is how Applications Manager helps you track key performance metrics in your infrastructure. Let's move on to the third topic of the day, detect anomalies with AI assisted smart alerts. So now that we've understood how we track key performance metrics, the next thing is how can we identify issues? So let's try to understand this with an example. Let's say we have an e-commerce app that you hosted on a server. This is your business application. So it generates revenue for you. So it's important that it performs at the optimum level. So at the each step of user experience, a transaction will take place and the app will basically store certain audit logs. If the disk usage exceeds 80%, it'll then mean that it's an alert. So we need to be aware of what we can do to avoid any other issues. So an IT operator has to manually move the logs to another partition, or we can have an automation system that helps you do this. So let's take the first scenario. What if the problem is overlooked by a new hire? What happens then? So it means we might lose a lot of historical data, or it might cause the disk to overflow. And if this problem suddenly occurs and the person who's responsible is unsure about what to do about the issue, then that becomes a problem as well. So, unless someone is willing to step up and take care of this, we are going to end up losing a lot of revenue, and we are going to have sloppy user experiences. And this is going to cost us our brand image as well. So this is where Applications Manager comes in. It basically helps you pinpoint the issues in your infrastructure, and it even allows you to initiate remediation measures to tackle these issues. So not to mention, all of these applications these days have both external components and internal components. So in external components, you can see that there might be other devices or IoT sensors. And for internal systems, we have databases, servers, storage, networking. All of these components contribute to that application, which means there's so much more information that you need to analyze before you can understand what went wrong or how it went wrong. And you'll have more logs to go through. So this is why Applications Manager comes in. It helps you understand where the issue is without you having to manually do it. So this is facilitated using thresholds, alarms, and actions, which I will now be explaining. So in Applications Manager, you have the threshold profile option when we click on the new threshold profile. So before I talk about what this threshold profile is, what is a threshold? So threshold basically define the status of an attribute based on specific conditions. So you can call it a predefined set of values that is associated to an attribute based on which an alarm is generated. So if this threshold is violated, you will receive an alert saying so and so threshold has been violated. So it is an indication that there's a problem with your application. So here you can specify certain rules. So this threshold profile in Applications Manager can be created for numeric values, string values, or float values. So this is the standard threshold profile. So you will just need to specify a threshold name, and then you have to specify the basic rule. So if the monitored value is greater than 70, then you will need to generate an alarm. So these thresholds can be specified for three different severities. We have the critical severity, warning severity, and clear severities. So you can even choose to append a message for each of this, which means when this particular threshold is violated, a critical alarm will be generated along with this specific message. So you will get to know that this is wrong with your applications. So this is about the standard threshold profile. We also have adaptive threshold profiles. So in adaptive threshold profile, you can do it based on two different types. So we have the baseline value and custom expression. So when we say baseline, it basically helps you pick a date range from this drop down. So you have all these weeks. So based on this baseline value, it will check if the threshold has been violated. So we also have the custom expression value. So here you can specify the limit. And so this will basically be based on some system variables that have already been defined. So you can do that as well. So for all of this, you can click on the show advanced option to specify it for different severities as well. So this is about the adaptive profile. So apart from this, we also have another option. We also have the anomaly profile, which I will get to in a while. So once you've defined the threshold, what you'll need to do is configure an alarm. So you go to the configure alarms page. So because when a threshold is violated, we need to receive an alert. So we'll need to configure an alarm. So we can do that in three different types. So first is the monitor. So you can select a specific monitor, and for that you can configure an alarm. Or secondly, you can do it for a monitor group, which means this particular alarm will be configured for all the monitors in this specific group. Or you can do it by monitor type. So you can select a specific monitor type, and then you can configure the alarms. So the second step is that now that we've created a threshold profile, we'll need to associate this threshold with one of these attributes. So let's take response time. So you click on associate. Here you can see that you can associate the threshold with threshold profile. So you have predefined threshold profiles. And if you've already created a threshold profile, you'll be able to see it here. So you can choose one of that, or you can choose to do the machine learning option. So this is what I was talking about, the AI smart alerts. So when you choose this machine learning option, what happens? So it makes use of the RPCA algorithm to determine whether an anomaly is detected, which means it basically collects a history of data for a specific attribute. And this data is compared to the current data. And if it sees any variations or deviations, it's going to give you an alert and say, see, this is not the usual, uh, you know, value of this particular attribute, so something must be wrong. So this way it uses machine learning to predict anomalies or predict unusual behavior for all of your attributes. So you can check the machine learning option if you want smart alerts as well. So this is about configuring alarms in Applications Manager. So we can also configure actions at the attribute level, so which I will come to in the next part. So you have a lot of components in your infrastructure, which means you might have to configure so many thresholds and so many alarms. So you might not know which is important and how to handle all of this manually, which is why you need to have remediation measures, as in something that automatically happens whenever an issue occurs. This is where the concept of actions come into picture. So in Applications Manager, we have different types of actions. So if you click on actions, you can see there are so many actions. So there's email action, which means if a particular threshold has been defined and it has been violated, an alarm has also been generated. When this alarm is generated, you can choose to send an email to that specific IT admin to take care of the problem. You can also choose to send an SMS, or you also have the option to execute a program. So when this particular issue occurs and when that alarm is generated, you can execute a specific program in your server to ensure that this problem is resolved. So you have other types of actions as well. You have a send trap action, you have Java heap dump or thread dump option. We even have virtual machine option, which means if you realize that your virtual machine is down, you can even start or restart your machine from Applications Manager without any manual intervention. So when you're configuring alarms, and you associate a specific threshold, you can see here that you can configure actions at the attribute level. For each of these severities, you can configure different actions. So if you've already created an action, you will be able to associate these actions as well. So this way, Applications Manager not only helps you detect issues, but can also initiate remediative measures to ensure that these issues are resolved. So this is an example screenshot of how Applications Manager basically used machine learning techniques to identify this unusual spike in the memory utilization attribute of a Kubernetes pod. As you can see that this spike is so much greater than the usual values. So it has notified us and has told us that something is wrong with your Kubernetes pod. So you can go and check what is wrong and resolve this issue before it spirals down into something more severe. So now we come to the last topic of the day. Now we've understood how we can discover and understand the dependencies between the components in your infrastructure, and how we can track key metrics, and how we can identify and pinpoint issues and initiate remediative measures to resolve those issues. So the final one is to use performance trend to analyze and make informed decisions. See, at the general level, analytics as such is basically used to boost the process and cost efficiency in your application. It also helps you drive strategy and change. It can help you monitor and improve your financial performance as well. But in application performance centric environment, Analytics can help you make informed decisions. It can be a valuable resource when you need to make strategic decisions. So let's say if you understand how your CPU or memory utilization for your resources, you will be able to provision your resources better. It also helps you improve the operational efficiency. So for example, with databases, analyzing your frequent slow running queries can help you understand how you can tune them to improve the performance and thereby improving the operational efficiency. Applications Manager basically supports two different types of uh, capacity planning and forecast planning reports. So first, let's talk about capacity planning. So what is capacity planning? It basically helps IT enterprises balance their hardware costs with their computing needs. So there are two main objectives for this. One, it can make efficient use of existing capacity, and two, it can minimize the wastage of computing resources. So with Applications Manager's capacity planning, you will be able to identify and pinpoint underutilized or overutilized or idle servers. So it can mainly be used to right size your virtual machines by understanding their capacities and provisioning them correctly. So there are three types here. So we need to, this Applications Manager helps you understand and identify undersized monitors, oversized monitors, and idle monitors. So let me show you all of this on our tool. So you go to the report section and here you click on capacity planning. So here is a list of all of the undersized monitors and their respective CPU utilization, memory utilization, and disk utilization. So you can even add notes for each of this. So if you want to define your own rules for understanding what an undersized server is or what an oversized server is, you can do so by clicking on this button. So here you can first select the rule. So which rule do you want to specify for oversized monitors or undersized monitors or idle monitors? And here you can specify the percentage of time. And here you can specify the conditions. So we have three attributes here, CPU, memory, and disk. You can choose to disable one of these attributes. It's not compulsory that you have to use all three. So you can specify the rules here and you can save the settings. So to give you an idea of what we mean when we say undersized servers or oversized monitors and stuff like that, when we say undersized servers, servers that are constantly, consistently using nearly all of their configured capacity, then we call it undersized, which means for a given amount of time, if the average CPU or memory utilization of a server is very high, then the resources allocated to that particular server is undersized. Similarly, when we say oversized, it means it's consistently using very less resources than its configured capacity. So for that given amount of time, if the average CPU or memory utilization is very, very low, then the resources allotted to that particular server is oversized. Similarly, we can even identify idle monitors. So for this, if these monitors show a very insignificant level of CPU usage or capacity usage, we can call it idle monitors. So Applications Manager's capacity planning basically helps you diagnose undersized, oversized, or idle servers. So all of this can be done by configuring these rules and specifying the criteria for all of these three attributes. So this is about capacity planning. Then we have the forecast reports. So what are forecast reports? So what does forecasting help us do? So there are two main objectives here. So it basically helps you stay informed about your current disk usage trends. It also helps you plan your future disk utilization requirement based on machine learning forecasts. So this is basically done by two different types in Applications Manager. We have forecast by growth trend and we have forecast by utilization. So when we say forecast by growth trend, We means that these forecast reports are generated based on their current utilization statistics and then predicts the growth in utilization in the future. When we say forecast by utilization, it's similar to forecast growth then, except here when the utilization level reaches an extreme high, then you can take appropriate actions. So let me show you how forecast reports work in Applications Manager. You go to the report section and here you have the forecast reports. So you can select the monitor type. So when you click on this, you can see that you have the forecast by utilization and forecast by growth trend. So basically it has the average value of all of these attributes, basically disk utilization here. You can see what the value will be on 28th September, what its value will be on 13th October, how it will change on 13th November. So all of this is enabled using machine learning techniques. So it studies your history or archive data of that particular attribute and then predicts how this disk utilization will change over different periods of time. You can change the time periods here, 3 months, 4 months. So this is how Applications Manager basically, helps you to leverage machine learning capabilities to analyze your disk utilization or other important attributes. So yeah, that's about forecast reports. So we've come to the end of the session. So before I give you a quick recap of what we learned today, I would like you to answer the poll that will appear on your screen right now. So you can do the same. So firstly, today we saw how we can auto-discover components and dependencies across your entire IT stack. And then we learned how we can measure key performance metrics across every layer of your infrastructure. And then we learned how we can instantly detect anomalies with AI assisted smart alerts. Here we learned how we can define thresholds and how, when these thresholds are violated, an alarm can be generated. And how, when each of these alarms are generated, we can also initiate remediative measures to resolve these issues instantly. And how we can actually use machine learning to detect anomalies or unusual spikes in your resources. And finally, we learned how we can leverage machine learning enabled analytics to analyze your performance trends. Thank you for joining us today.